Yes, that's right. It's Joe here, live for Joyrider TV. Yes, that's right. I have been just down the mine shaft less than an hour ago. That is where I was. But now here we are in the Joyrider TV studio, ready for this week's Q&A. We're gonna be talking about a great many topics today, but the two most prominent topics we're going to be looking at is firstly, we're going to be looking at the best practices for man overboard situations as advertised, and what to do, kind of like real world. What would you do? Not like what's written in the book, what would you do, but what would I do if someone fell off my boat in a number of different situations. And then the other main topic we are going to be looking at is we're going to be following on with crew positions on the boat. And that is what we're going to start off with. So this question has been raised by both Hussein in Egypt and Leo in the Netherlands, about crew positions, best place to be on the boat. You may have noticed I've done a bit of preparation. Thank you very much. And so we're going to start off by looking at upwind crew positions, where we should looking for power when we don't have much cheese on the burger. Where are we going to be on the boat? Upwind, light winds. And we're starting off by looking at the Formula 18 or Tornado style boats, which all share similar characteristics. And so light winds, first thing, and I was told this many years ago by Danny and Costas, the multi-time Tornado world champions, Olympic silver medalists, and Formula 18 world champions. They said, in no uncertain terms, light wind, even when it's really light wind, this is where you sit on the boat. No questions asked, no room for negotiation. Doesn't matter how heavy you are. All right, so here we've got the boat. This is the front beam. Crew sits just forwards of the front beam. Helm just behind. Always, in terms of crew weight distribution and trim, we should always be putting the helm and the crew as close together as possible in a forwards and aft plane, let's say. So light winds. The reason we're doing this is this more of the bow of the boat in the water. This is going to put, and on, especially on the traditional shape boats, the forward section of the hull is more like a knife-like section which really cuts through the water. So what we're trying to do, because in a light wind, we're not going to generate enough boat speed to really start getting good lift off the centerboards, or definitely off the rudders. So getting more lift from the hull itself and more leeway prevention is certainly going to be in our favor. So getting a bit further forwards on the hull, putting more bow in the water, and our performance is going to be improved. Now, when we're talking about putting the bow in the water, we're not looking to have it so that the boat is sitting at this sort of angle, like really bows down, because we're going to lose all grip with the rudder. We are going to get some lift from the rudder anyway, albeit not a huge amount. And it's also, by it being like that, it's going to rake the rig forwards, which is really going to kill our pointing ability in the light winds. So we want the boat flat like that, so that the boat is completely parallel with the horizon. And that is a common theme for all upwind sailing in all conditions. Okay, so then as we get into some now, if we're sailing a smaller boat like a Hobie 16, then the difference here is going to be the crew is definitely not going to be there. Helm pretty much in the same spot, just behind the front cross beam on the windward side. Crew in towards mast. So that is going to be your optimal position. Like legs on the leeward side of the boat. So really hugging the mast a bit there on the upwind leg for the crew. All right, continuing as the wind increases. So as the wind increases, tornado Formula 18 style, the first stage is going to be the helm is still going to be in the same position, and the crew is going to be able to, from this position on the bow, if there's a gust of wind and the hull lifts up, extending out onto the trapeze from that position on the bow. So on the bow, hull starts to lift. Now, if the hull lifts when we're looking for power, and as the wind is increasing, we don't want to be depowering the boat at that stage. Because we've got both people on the boat, we have got the ability to really harness that power by getting out on the trapeze. And so the crew goes out on the trapeze, just going in and out in the gusts and lulls. Again, just keeping the hull absolutely flat. Not down at the bow, not up at the bow, but completely flat. And then as it should be, if one person is having to move in and out a lot, this is all boats, onto the trapeze, like if it's quite gusty, it should always be the crew who is doing the majority of the movements, because the helm should really be focusing on steering a steady course. And as you may know, when the helm moves out on the trapeze. So then when there's enough wind for one person to be out on the trapeze all of the time, then it works well for the helm to go out on the trapeze. Crew can still be in a similar position, doing exactly the same as what they were doing previously, moving out onto the trapeze, the gust, if the hull lifts, as that gust comes down, maybe just bending the knees, coming in by the boat, or if necessary, coming in completely. Position of the helm on the trapeze should be around the shroud, maybe just a little bit further forwards of the shroud. But again, exactly the same thing. We're just keeping the boat as level as possible. Okay. So there we go. Medium wind. That is our crew positions there. Now, when we get to heavy winds and we're starting to look at depowering the boat, when we get to these heavy winds, the boat is going to be sailing much faster, which means that it's going to be more efficient for us to start loading up the centerboard and the rudder. On a asymmetrical hulled boat, which doesn't have a centerboard like a Hobie 16, or a skeg hull boat like a dart, then we're wanting to load up the skeg a lot more as well. And when I say load up, so that means we're going to start putting our weight more. Wind, we're going to be further back. Ideally, we're going to be double trapezing. And on a Formula 18 style boat, we'll be focusing firstly, if it's flat water, constant wind, we'll be focusing our crew weight up to probably about 20 knots of wind, really on the dagger board or centerboard. So we're applying as much pressure as possible to that part of the boat, because it's that part of the boat which is going to give us the most lift. Yeah. Yes. On a boat like a 16, when you get to 20 knots, then if you're really well powered, and you've had to pull the downhaul on quite hard to depower, then coming towards the back of the raised section of trampoline is good. So again, reason for this is we're shifting our where we're applying the pressure more so that we're getting more lift from the rudders. We're still getting loads of lift from that flat outside of the hull, but we're also getting more lift from the rudder in that situation. Okay, so those are our upwind crew positions. Is everybody happy with that? If you're watching live, then do feel free to jump into the live chat. So before I jump into the live chat, just going to go through the downwind crew positions as well. Now, the big difference with downwind is it really is an advantage to get the bows down a bit, especially in the light wind, because in the light wind, we're not looking to loads of lift off the hulls or the dagger boards or the rudders. We are looking to extend our waterline length, which we can do by putting the bow down, because then the distance from the frontmost part of the boat, which is in the water, and the distance between there and the back of the rudder blade, which is in the water, is longer, which gives us a higher potential top speed. But what else is happening here going downwind, if we get the boat kind of, where should I put him, leaning forward slightly, is it's going to bring the mast more upright, which is going to present more sail area to the wind, making us more powerful. And on a boat like a Hobie 16, you can sail very deep, like deeper than our regular 90-degree apparent wind angle, in very light winds and get a nice amount of speed. All right, so where do we position ourselves on the boat? Okay, we're going to have to use the same helm and crew because we've run out of helms and crews. Okay, so in really light winds, and this is pretty much the same across all catamarans, is helm, if you can steer the boat from there, forwards of the front beam. Yes. Crew directly opposite forwards of the front beam. Sorry, I just have an error message that's popped up, which I absolutely don't understand. Yeah, so forwards of the front beam, but even in really light wind, very important for the helm is for them to have a feeling that they can steer the boat. So, because as you come further forwards, what happens, like as you're further back, the angle of the tiller extension, very effective. We're getting a very direct pull on the rudders. As we come more forwards, that angle isn't as effective for steering the boat. So if it's a gusty wind, albeit light, you might want to be a bit further back on the boat so you've got more of an ability to steer. Important. So Hobie 16 positions downwind would be sat, here we go. I've kind of run out of whiteboard real estate a little bit, but it's all right, we can manage. So this is the spot. It's comfortable, it's nice, and if you're going a long way, you can sit like this and it is superbly comfortable. Now, if the wind is really, really light and the sea is completely flat, you could take it to the next level and sit on the boat here, use the boat when you get into that position. The time not in that position is if you feel that the bow of the boat is occasionally going underwater. That's going to slow you down a lot and you're going to start getting wet shorts. Nobody wants that. Okay. In the spinnaker type boats, then if we are getting towards the amount of wind where we can get the hull lifting, which, to be honest, in a boat like a Tornado, isn't a lot of wind. It's 6 knots. You can lift the hull downwind. Then to encourage the hull to lift that little bit sooner, the helm can come in towards the mast. And then if the helm's coming in towards the mast and we are lifting the hull, the crew here is going to be too far forwards, because what's going to happen if the hull lifts, then we're going to kind of lose the efficiency on the leeward rudder. So they would want to come back a little bit as well. Again, you can check this by seeing if the water is coming over the bow and just by feeling the rudders on the boat. The same goes for heavy wind upwind. If you're sailing along heavy wind upwind and you're well powered, maybe depowering a bit, and the rudders feel like they really don't work correctly, it might be that you are too far forwards on the boat on the upwind. Okay, so there is our light wind, downwind positions. As we start getting more wind, we'll start off with the Hobie 16 type, just to make sure that the water isn't ever coming over the deck. It's a combination of, yes, it's slow to have the water coming over the deck, but also as we get into a sort of more of a medium wind, there is the potential for sticking the nose and flipping the boat over. The potential is there. So moving backwards slightly on the boat as we pick up speed. On the spinnaker boat, almost exactly the same. We're just going to move back slightly as the wind increases. So if we're able to fly the hull fairly consistently, using the dagger boards, the lifted dagger boards as a backrest on both sides of the boat, again, helm and crew in a very similar position, fore and aft, forwards and back on the hull. So very effective position to be in, and using those backrests, comfortable. Yeah, very nice. Now the difference will come in these moderate winds with the spinnaker is when you need a bit more power, like if it's a significantly wavy or choppy day, and by sailing the boat deep, mode low, so this would be kind of for the wind, a kind of deep mode, whereas we can power it up more by turning towards the wind more. And we might want to turn the boat towards the wind more so that it will cut better through the chop or the waves. That is something you'll decide at the time. Like if you're sailing deep mode, like B, and it feels like really stop start because of the waves or chop, or the boat just isn't running very well, you might want to change mode to a higher mode, which would then mean you'd need to move back slightly and the crew could come over to the windward side on the trampoline. There we go. And then when we come to the high wind, looking to depower sailing conditions, then for the helm, very similar in both types of boat. Yes, we're going to go to the back corner of the trampoline. For the crew on a boat like a 16, getting as cozy as possible on the trampoline, maybe even a little bit in towards the middle of the boat so you can get that little bit further back, really to lever against that leeward bow. On to do on the spinnaker boat, the bow, especially if it's gusty, if it's really windy, like in excess of 20 knots and we're flying the spinnaker, then there's no shame in having the bow slightly lifted. So what does slightly look like? like that. Because what happens when we get a gust is the bow gets pushed down. So totally optimal would be sailing with the boat completely flat in the water. That would be completely optimal. But what that does for us is if we do get a gust, we haven't got a buffer meaning a period of time in which we can respond to the fact that the bow is now almost about to go under the water, which means the rudders are quite possibly out of the water, which means we can't steer, we can't do anything about it. So having a bit of a buffer with a slightly higher bow, if we're talking modern Formula 18 shape, then that would be with the tip of the bow just out. Just the tip out there. What does that mean for our positions? Well, it means that the crew isn't automatically going all the way to the back, getting into that foot strap, because there might be periods when the wind is a bit lighter, where if you wanted to have maximum performance, the crew on the trapeze can go forwards quite easily. And then when you see the gust approaching, which would be in this situation, you'd see the gust kind of over here. The gust is moving that way and you're about to go into it. When you see the gust approaching, then you go, okay, as soon as that gust hits, to the back, in the foot strap, and then you can really drive the boat hard. So there we go. That is a very condensed crew positions, all of it done there. I hope that was a satisfactory explanation on such a topic. And if it was, a great way to show your support for the Q&A is by using the super chat. Yes, keeping the Q&A ad-free, which that might have been an ad in itself. Who can say? Anyway, continuing into the live chat. So who is taking line honours today? Bobby Bruce. Yes, Bobby Bruce, of course, one of the, I'd say one of the most superb characters on the US Hobie sailing scene. Sails a Hobie 21 and an 18. Nice to have you on board, Bobby, who says, hello, my Hobie family. Thank you for all your support. I feel humbled with all of the support we have received. Yeah, Bobby had quite a disaster this week, but the Hobie community has absolutely got behind him. And that's what we're here for each other as a community. The Joyrider TV community as well. Everybody is charging in the same direction. What direction are we charging towards having a lovely time? That is really what we're looking for here. All right, we've got Levi on board who says Thursday live, fancy. Yes. Yeah, I had a scheduling conflict this week where my son is actually playing his first piano recital tomorrow evening. So kind of got to go to that. So that's why we are here and now. All right, nice one, Levi. Christian is on board in British Columbia somewhere. Good morning, spherical Earth. 23 days till race to Alaska. Nice. Expect some additions to the speed stick. Nice. Yes. Yeah, I got a new speed stick, top speed for me today. Quite pleased with that. Because what makes the biggest difference speed stick wise for me is on the day when I want to go out sailing and go fast, I'm going to tune the rudders before I put the boat in the water, because the rudders make the biggest difference. If they're not absolutely perfect, it's like sailing with the brakes on, albeit a little bit, but definitely sailing with the brakes on. All right, continuing. We got RJ Fleet on board from Lake Benton, Minnesota. Water is very cold, but getting more tolerable. Just installed new shrouds and forestay. Very sensible. There, don't want that mast falling down. How old is your rigging? Yeah, there's the question. Do you not even know? Maybe it's like 15 years old. Time to put on some new shrouds, new forestay, and not to say you might need some more there, but bridle wires as well, because you don't know when those things are going to break. Okay. RJ Fleet continues, it's going to be the best year with my Hobie 16. I'm so pleased to hear that. Okay, we've got Greg on board. Hello from San Diego. Man Overboard is of interest as I sail solo Hobie 16, and first instinct is to let go of the mainsail when danger arrives. I'd just like to say to Greg, thanks very much once again for helping me out with the Max 2, because today was actually the first video shooting with the Max 2 in Vasiliki Bay, Lefkas, Greece. Beans were given, and all being well, I should have a new video out on Sunday. The GoPro Max 2 is the only 360 cam that does true 8K high quality. Oh, yes. All right. Greg says, instinct is to let go of the mainsail when danger arrives. Yes, we're going to be coming on to the Man Overboard hot topic very shortly indeed. And to be honest, Greg, I hadn't actually considered the single-handed Man Overboard situation. But yes, we can certainly talk about that as well. Just clearing the board as we go. Okay, so what else went on in the world of Joyrider this week? Yeah, very cool. Earlier on in the week, I had a Zoom call, which I have recorded, and this will be a video coming pretty soon, with Paddy Butler, the guy behind the YouTube channel Totally Immersed TV. Check out Totally Immersed TV. It's all the action coming from the Australian racing circuit, mostly Hobie 16s and 14s, but Paddy is an absolute powerhouse, driving a lot of the how would you call it, the getting people onto catamarans in Australia. So what I think we should all be working towards as catamaran sailing enthusiasts is getting more people into the sport, because that is the future of the sport, especially young people who are going to continue with the sport, keeping it going. Yes. So I had a chat with Paddy, recorded the chat, so that'll be coming out soon. And this is about the GP format of sailing boat races, which I have signed up to sail in the Wave GP in Florida in September this year. And I wasn't sure what to expect, but now Paddy's gone through it with me. I am very excited because last time I raced a Wave, I did very badly, and not particularly good there. But anyway, live chat. RJ Fleet says, yes, the Thursday live surprised me too. Glad I caught the notification. Yeah, if there's any other way that you think I can communicate with everybody to let you know of a timing change, I made a really nice, I thought it was nice anyway, Instagram and YouTube, what's it called? Facebook story that gave a countdown to when the live was going to be happening. I also did several posts on Facebook and on YouTube as well. But is there another way that I could keep you updated with schedule changes like this? Let me know. All right. So we've got Og Dosev on board from Bulgaria. Nice. I think this must be your first time in the live chat. Big fan for a long time. You're one of the reasons I bought an inflatable catamaran. Yes, that's right. I am a huge fan of the Mini Cat inflatable catamaran. It is so much fun to sail. And yes, much slower than the fiberglass boats. But no, it doesn't matter that it's slower, because when you're on the boat, it feels fast because you're really close to the water, and it's so practical as well. Great to have you on board there, Og, if I could call you Og. All right, Levi says, I always do very badly racing the wave. No shame. All right, that fleet has some legit sailors. Yes, indeed. A lot of people going into the wave in the USA who have been previous national champions in other classes. So on to the next big question, which is the hot topic for today. By the way, my main sponsor is my wife, Karen Bennett. If you want some online yoga, check out KarenBennettYoga.com, I believe. And she's doing yoga classes online pretty much every day of the week, working week, Monday to Friday. Yeah. She's very good at it as well. Yeah. Okay. So the best practice for man overboard, what would we actually do? So how everything starts is we're sailing along and someone falls off the boat. Okay, so, and let's just focus on having two people on the boat to start with. In actual real life situation, the most sensible thing to do if someone falls off the boat is whoever is left on the boat, for them to grab the stick and push the boat up into the wind. I know this sounds very simple, straightforward, kind of might even seem quite obvious, but the textbooks tell us that they don't even say shove the boat head to wind if someone falls off. So if someone falls off and you are going to put the boat head to wind, it, depending on the amount of wind, they do need to be reasonably close to you. So this is not in any way the kind of orthodox textbook technique, but put the boat head to wind. And if you think that they're going to be able to swim back to the boat, just keep the boat head to wind. And what's going to happen is the boat's going to start to go backwards. If you're truly head to wind, then you can sail the boat backwards by putting the rudders across like that way. The boat will reverse round, which is going to bring you a bit closer to them. And then the boat's going to go forwards again a bit, and you should be able to get back in touch with a man overboard that way. Okay, so if they're a little bit further away, the second thing that we can use, the second tool that we have in our toolbox of available maneuvers that we have learnt through watching Joyrider TV, even watching the Joyrider TV classroom series. Thank you very much to everyone who has got him on board there. Is like, if we're a bit further away, we can perform a static 3-point turn. What is the static 3-point turn? It's effectively tacking the boat without having to get going first. And so he falls off. With the stick, we push the boat up into the wind. We loosen the sails, and we're going to start drifting off like this if we just stay there. But static 3-point turn, pull the main sheet in all the way. Boat is going to sail up into the wind when we pull the main sheet in like that. If you want to, you don't even have to sheet the main in. You could grab hold of the boom, pull the boom into the middle of the boat, or even across the center line towards you. That is really going to pull the boat up into the wind. When you're head to wind, you might need to reverse the rudders. So if we look at what the rudders are doing through the static 3-point turn. So you've pulled the boom, rudders are going to be across like that, which is going to turn the front of the boat that way. Then head to wind, the boat's going to start moving backwards, which means we need to immediately, when we start going backwards, put the rudders across the other way. And then if you see what is logical, what's going to happen is the back of the boat is going to turn that way, which is then going to have us end up on the other tack, which means we can then, depending on where the man overboard is, like if they're up here, which might have happened by this point because we have sailed backwards a little bit there, we can then drift across like this. If we need to go forwards a bit more, then just pull the traveller in, maybe pull the main sheet in. And even though it's not the best textbook way to pick the man overboard up, get the guy just to the side of the boat, and as long as they're conscious there, you can stop the boat by turning it up into the wind. They're holding on and they can pull themselves up onto the boat. You might even tack here, another kind of 3-point turn sort of tack. And this is a very effective strategy, real world. Like if there's big waves and your guy falls off the boat, you don't want to be sailing far away from him because you could very easily lose sight of that man overboard. So stop the boat. First thing, stop the boat. First thing, stop the boat. Have you got a crew who's never sailed before and you're the one who fell in the water? Good idea to let them know, if I fall in the water, please stop the boat. Just do this. Sails loose, stick, push it into the wind. There we go. Okay, stop the boat. If you're too far away, static 3-point turn, advancing forwards a bit if you need to. Okay, but what if, better for lighter wind, certainly if someone falls off the boat, or if the sea's flatter, or if you've got a bigger distance, like if they fell off the boat, like if the helm fell off the boat, like maybe their trapeze broke because you didn't replace the trapeze lines. In fact, quick tangent. Yes, that's right. On Joyrider TV, there is the Joyrider TV Classroom series. One of the modules in the Classroom series, the whole thing is 120 videos across 18 modules. One of the modules is about catamaran rope work, in which I go through the best technique to make your own Dyneema trapeze lines. This means you can make your own Dyneema trapeze lines, which means you can replace your trapeze lines I would replace them every 3 years for some new ones. And the ropes, the Dyneema, is available in a range of different colors. Very nice. The Joyrider Classroom series is available as a subscription, which you can do through YouTube channel memberships, €10, I believe, a month, or as a one-time purchase, about something like €150. And there is a link to that on the totaljoyrider.com website. Thank you very much. Back to the point. So if you're sailing along and the helm ends up in the water and you're a distance away from him before the crew realizes, the crew grabs the stick. Wow, this is going to be a bit of a maneuver for the crew, but here we go. Now, this is the textbook man overboard recovery technique. What we're going to do is we're going to sail away from the man overboard on a reaching course. Okay, so far? Yes. Now we're sailing away from him just to give us enough space to control our speed when we go back to pick him up. We are then going to go through a jibe. We're going to take the boat downwind into a jibe. Now, you may be shouting at your computer right now, or you might be on the bus going, what? Why jibe? And then people are looking at you funny on the bus or train. But no, we're jibing because we want to be further downwind. Like the textbook technique for a monohull doing a man overboard would be to do the same thing like this, but actually to tack round and then do a big figure of 8. But because of the maneuvering speed and the actual distance it would take in a catamaran, if we were to do this on the catamaran, we'd have to sail far too far away. And then here is the trick. We come down here on a broad reach, and then we turn the boat so that we point at the man overboard. By the way, as we were sailing away here, we keep looking back so we know exactly where he is. Yes? All right. Then we come downwind, we jibe, and then we turn the boat, point him at the man overboard, and with the sails loose, we kind of gauge how much we can control our speed. If with the sails loose, you're still going very fast, it might actually be because the wind is more like round here. If with the sails loose, you find it's quite difficult to point to the man overboard, then it's time to start sailing upwind to get back to him. But if you think, yes, I can control the speed totally just with the sails, then that is perfect. But if it isn't perfect, what we'll then do is a series of little S turns. So we're basically changing our position from being here to turn up to being here to turn up by doing a little maneuver like that until we get to a position where we think, yes, I can control the speed just using the sails. That is what we're looking at. Because then what we want to do is approach our friend in the water. And ideally, this is the absolute textbook. We want to stop the boat by letting the sails out and not by having to turn the boat closer to the wind. And then when we pick the man overboard up, we're zooming in now. We want to have him so that he's touching the hull around where the front beam is or the shroud, that area there on the windward side, because that means that the wind is going to counterbalance him getting back on the boat. We don't put him between the hulls because if we overshoot, we could hit him with the dolphin striker. So there we go. That is pretty much it. If we make a mess of it, then we could either go and like we fail, like he's here, we could either go into the static 3-point turn method, which I spoke about just now, or try the same approach again. But like we've said before, every time you go out on the water, have a bit of an agenda. Like think, what could I practice today? And a good thing to practice is this man overboard drill, like the full one and the static 3-point turn one. You don't have to get your crew to jump in the water, especially if there's alligators in the water. Don't do that. But instead, what you could do is just find a buoy or buoy out on the water, sail past it and say, okay, that's our man overboard. Let's do the maneuver. Practice. Because you never know when you might need to do this for real. So what if you've never practiced and your crew falls off the boat and you're like, oh, never practiced this? Practice it, and that is going to make it a lot more like you've got an idea of what you're going to do when and if it actually happens. There we go. Just like to say thanks very much to Boris for kicking off the super chats today. I've noticed the Q&A. The super chat is the way to say is ad-free. The reason the Q&A is ad-free is because of the availability of the super chat. Nobody likes ads on the videos apart from Google. Thanks very much, Boris. All right. So, all right, just backpedaling here in the live chat. All right, Levi says, I train a lot alone on the wave, and I'm definitely worried about the boat leaving without me and then getting run over by a teenager on a jet ski. Yeah, I'd worry about that as well, getting run over by a teenager on a jet ski. So if you're sailing alone, what can we do? We've been through tethering before. Have I got my special oversized? This is absolutely enormous, totally too big for the job. But if you're sailing alone on the boat, you could have a snap shackle, which is attached to your trapeze harness or to your buoyancy aid. And if you're concerned about falling off the boat, take the loop of the main sheet and traveler and just hook it in to the snap shackle, which means if you fall off the boat, you're going to be attached. And because it's the main sheet and traveler, actually be pulling the rope, which is going to sheet in, which is going to help to bring the boat head to wind. So that is I would say that is the ultra safe, don't lose your boat, get run over by a teenager on a jet ski formula. The second way of addressing this issue if you're sailing alone is, and not quite as ideal, but I would say it's something that everybody should be doing at all times when you go sailing, and that is to have the main sheet in your hand at all times, which means if you fall off the boat as the helm, you're holding on to the main sheet, and you could probably quite quickly go, I'm in the water, 2 hands on the main sheet. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to pull the sail in, which is going to pull the boat head to wind, stopping the boat, making it easier for you to climb your way along the rope back to the boat. There we are. All right. So, all right. Og says same. Yes. Yeah. And agreeing that when sailing solo, no safety out, don't push quite so hard. Very good. All right. Oh yes, Og says maybe drop an empty jug. Yes, I believe you're referring to if you're wanting to practice your man overboard. Yes, something like a jug or anything that you have available which will float, which is big enough that you can see it. just sail along, chuck it off the boat, go and recover it. Yeah, anything works well as a simulator. So Boris is tuning in from Florida and says, could you talk about the Hilton Head regattas? The rules, I signed up for it, but my sails are whirlwind. The trampoline is a Salt City, just like mine. Yes, very good choice. All right then, Boris. So this is a really good question, actually. The question of, can you participate in regattas with non-original sails and trampolines? There we go. The big question. Now, the answer to this question is it depends. Depends on who the organisers are of the event, what the rules are of the class that you sail. So an example of when the answer is going to be a straight no, if it's an international event in a class like a Hobie 16, or the other big one would be the Dart 18. These two classes are what we call strict one design. The biggest example would be if you're sailing an Ilka or a laser. You definitely, same as on the Hobie, same as on the Dart, you have to use the sails and the trampolines from the manufacturer. No questions asked. That is the rules. You have to do that. So that is the strict part in strict one design. We'll come on to the Hilton Head regatta afterwards, but going through this at bigger or international events. So the same would be if it's an international event, or if it's a national event, or if it's like a regional event that has been organized by the class association. More likely that you are going to need to be sailing with the original sails. If you're sailing a boat like Formula 18 or a Tornado, of which we speak about quite often, then the great thing with these classes is you can sail with any sails from any manufacturer and trampoline. But the thing is, the sails have to be measured at those events. So you could sail in the Formula 18 World Championships with sails that have been made by your mate Jeff, who did them on his sewing machine. Very nice. But they have to be the correct size, which means when you go to the event, you have to get them measured by an official measurer for the class. Yeah, so that is in a boat which would be called a one design, not a strict one design. Is everyone with me so far here? If in doubt about any of it, you can always refer to what is called the Notice of Race, which is a document which would be published before you can sign up for the race. Notice of Race says where it's going to be, when it's going to be, what the schedule is, like how many races on each day, that kind of thing. And then it will say any special requirements, like every boat has to have this much insurance cover. So you need to make sure your boat is insured. It might say everybody has to carry a VHF radio. Another consideration there. So those are the basics. Now, with the Hilton Head regatta, one of the reasons that I think made it such a fun race is because the emphasis of this regatta is definitely on the fun. It's hard, fast racing, but it's on the fun, which means that the emphasis in the rules of the regatta is let's make the doors as wide open as possible for as many people as possible to enter the race. Yeah, so that means the Hilton Head Regatta, You've got a Hobie 16. Yes, you can sail it with any manufacturer of sails, with any manufacturer of trampoline. Yeah, makes it a really fun regatta. Now, the only thing from last year, which I would say should be addressed to change slightly in the rules, is that it should be necessary that you sail with the correct number of crew on your boat, which means no, you can't turn up with a tornado and sail single-handed. You turn up with a crew for your tornado, you see that the wind is going to be light, and then you go, well, I'm going to go faster if I don't take the crew. All right, you're not coming. And then you win because you're so light. Yeah, it should be the right number of people sailing the boat. That is the only thing that I would say should be a thing at the Hilton Head Regatta. By the way, Hilton Head Regatta, end of October, most fun race regatta I think ever, is not an understatement, is not an overstatement. There we go. So if you're in the USA, especially if you are towards the east, you should be going. All right, Boris says, how big is the shackle for the downhaul? Wow. Sorry, just staying hydrated, feeling a bit crusty. Have I got one here? No. Yeah, sorry, how big is the downhaul for the shackle, and how do you take it off when you're done with the boat? I won't be able to be here working and meeting some clients, but I'll see it later. Thanks. Yeah, so the shackle for the downhaul should be a 4mm. Sorry, I don't know what that is in imperial numbers for you in America, but a 4mm and ideally Ronstan shackle from Australia. Very good. All right, we've got Kevin on board. Hi, Kevin. Long time no hear from you. Kevin from Illinois, USA. All right, RJ Fleet says, what is an A-class cat? Are they home built and designed some sort of formula? Yes, I did a boat explainer video. It's very good, on what is an A-class catamaran. That's right, it's Joe here, and I'm going to tell you. That's how the video starts. The A-class is quite an old an old class of boat. Came out at the same time as the Tornado, around that sort of time. It is a development class, which means anybody can make the hulls, the beams, the trampoline, the sails, the mast, and they can do some pretty wild designs as long as everything measures to the rules of the class, which would be how long is the boat, how long are the dagger boards, rudder blades, what is the width of the boat, how tall is the mast allowed to be, and how big can the sail be. There's been so much development in the A-class. It's the first beach catamaran or small catamaran that became foiling. So there's now two A-class fleets. One is foiling, one is what's now called classic, or I think the cool kids call them low riders. Yeah, so that is the A-class. Very exciting, single-handed, one sail, just the main, very lightweight. I think the minimum weight for an A-class catamaran is 75 kilograms, which is not much. There we go. All right, Hans is on board in Vasiliki Lefkas, Greece. Yeah, it's very good day today in Vasiliki Bay. Absolute champagne. And I was very lucky to be able to get out and shake a bit of dust off the trampoline. Oh, yes. Video coming soon. All right. So we've been going for an hour now. So if you feel any of this information as being useful, do feel free to drop in a super chat. It's the way of supporting the Q&A, especially seeing as that it is ad-free. Okay, next preloaded question. And in fact, if I could just request no more questions in the live chat, because I've got a bit of a time limit today and we've been going for an hour. So question from Tim on the man overboard question. And this is the face that I pull when I don't know exactly what the answer is. Tim says, if someone fell off a boat and you on another boat pick them up, put them on your boat, what is the best way to transfer them back to their boat? Now, if we're fortunate and the sea is flat, wind is steady, then we can just, if this is one boat, and this is another reason for practicing these sort of maneuvers, it's the same thing, whether it's a buoy or a boat, you get this approach line correct. And then the best thing to do, if you are coming alongside another boat, is to slip in on the leeward side, easing your sails to control the speed. Slip in. If you've got, you're going to have two people on the boat. One of them is the crew that fell off. You can then use your feet off the side as fenders to prevent any damage. So kind of like this. So your feet would go up against the hull of the other boat, which is just here, and a second pair of feet as well to help it, and holding on to the other boat, and that way transferring the guy. If there's big waves and not much danger, the next method, so if there's big waves, doing this coming alongside could be a little bit dangerous, might cause damage because the boat going up and down. So if there's big waves and you're sailing somewhere particularly warm without any danger, like alligators in the water or other sea creatures that are looking to eat you, then what you could do is, if this is the boat you're trying to get the guy onto, and then you're on boat D, then what could we do? We could sail past. The crew could be stood on or sat on the leeward side of the boat. And when you get to about here, the crew could just jump off into the water and then just a few strokes of a swim to get over to the boat and then climb on board that way. Another option. Another option, if it was big waves, might be just to shout over to the other boat, I don't like the look of this. Let's go back in, and then you can have your man back on the boat. There we go. All right. So next preloaded question comes from Stephen, who sails a Spitfire. A Spitfire is very similar to a Formula 16 catamaran, originally built in the UK, and great boats, the Spitfires. And Stephen says, so we're looking at a hull shape most like this, incidentally. Stephen says, in terms of pitch pole prevention, what do I do with my dagger boards when I'm sailing downwind? And also, should I let the downhaul off? Yes, here we go. So downwind. Sorry, a lot of talking, feel a bit hoarse. Downwind, what do we need to do to make the boat feel less likely that it wants to stick the nose in? So we're quite clearly talking, there's a bit of wind here. So first thing, before we turn the corner from upwind to downwind, yes, we should put the dagger boards up. Now, how far do we put the dagger boards up? As a starting point, what we want to do, if we were to take a straight line along the kind of the bottom of the hull like this, we want to have from that line, which be kind of like that, from that line, we measure below that line how far down the rudder blades come. So they're going to be much shorter than the dagger boards. And then we want to have the dagger boards down exactly the same amount. If we have them further down, it is going to lead to the bows wanting to go in. Now, why is this? As we go forwards, spinnaker up, we're going to be sailing fast. So as we go through the water, this is the water coming. The water is going to hit the bottom of the dagger board. And if we've got our dagger boards all the way down, what that is going to do, if you can imagine this, is pushing the bottom of the dagger board, which is going to be trying to lever the front of the boat down. Yeah. So that is why we need to lift the dagger board. The other thing that's going to happen if we leave the dagger boards down too far is we're going to get turbulent flow of water, which hits the rudders. And when we've got turbulence around the rudders, that also lifts the back of the boat, which is going to push the bows down. Right. Next thing that's pushing the bows down is if your rudders aren't tuned nicely, which means that the rudder blades should tuck into the rudder stock all of the way. So tight up against the rudder stock. If the rudder blade is able to come back at all like that from there to there, then that is going to be lifting the back of the boat up, which again is going to be pushing the bows down. So pay attention to your rudder tuning schedule, which I think should be in the real world. If you're putting the boat on the trailer, every time you're about to take the boat off the trailer, put the rudders down, have a look. If you are keeping the boat at one place, and I would take a look again every time you go sailing. But if that's too much for you, once a month for sure, have a look at your rudders if you want to get the most enjoyment and performance from your catamaran. There we go. What about downhaul for downwind? Yeah, if it's windy, you should have had the downhaul cranked for the upwind. So yes, you should ease the downhaul off to about half, depends on the boat, but could be halfway to it being at the minimum setting, or it could even be all the way to the minimum setting. But on a boat like this, sailing downwind, you're going to be having the main sheet pulled in tight. And if you pull the main sheet in tight without having enough downhaul on, sorry, just doing a quick rig here. So there's the boat, sail. So when you pull the main sheet in tight, it pulls the sail down. What's that going to do if you have, yeah, boat's kind of going down a bit there. when you pull the sail down like that, what's it going to do? It's going to, if you've let your downhaul off almost completely, it's going to put creases into the sail. We don't want that. So know what your minimum downhaul is when you're sailing with maximum main sheet tension. And then when you've found out what that is, put a mark on the mast. If you've got a silver mast, you could just use a permanent pen. If you've got a black mast, then you could get some white tape, or I'm not even selling these, so I'm not promoting them. But you could use a calibration sticker like this. There we go. That says how much to pull on. So there you go, Stephen. I hope that is helpful. All right, just like to say goodbye to Levi, who has got to go. So just going to finish off with the last question because I've got to go. Have a great recital. Thank you, Christian. All right, this one came in from David, who said, how did you get into sailing? Yeah, so I think I was about 12 years old, getting into a bit of trouble at school, into skateboarding a lot, obsessed by it, in fact. And my parents thought that skateboarding was perhaps giving me a slightly worse attitude. So my father, who was involved racing yachts across the British Channel quite often at the time, he signed me up for some sailing lessons. He thought this is going to be the right thing to do. So I initially learnt sailing in the Wayfarer class of boat, which is a 16-foot long, open, like a day boat monohull, which I sailed with. One of my friends from school started learning at the same time, with one teacher on the boat who was a school teacher who liked teaching sailing. And that was basically the start. And then from there, I got involved with the local sailing club, which had a small fleet of Dart 18s. It was a small fleet in the boat park, like 5 boats, but all of them would race at the weekend. So that is the big difference. Doesn't matter if you've got 30 boats in your boat park if they're not getting used. So this was really great. So after a few months of learning how to helm the boat on the Wayfarer, I got my first crewing opportunity in a race on the Dart 18, which was my first time trapezing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Loved it. The speed of the Dart 18 was amazing. Absolutely fantastic. And I was so hooked immediately after that. So yeah, continued crewing on the Dart 18 after that in the club racing on a Sunday morning and Wednesday evenings as well. And then eventually I saw on a notice board in the sailing club, a Dart 18 had come available for sale for just £400. That is not much for a Dart 18 or any type of catamaran. So I did some serious fundraising and bought the boat. And then after that, I sailed that boat every single day. Yeah, that is what made the difference for me. I sailed that boat every single day. If there was an event going on, I'd get someone else from the fleet of the sailing club to take my boat to the event so that I could participate because I was too young to drive. And then eventually I got old enough to drive, but I sailed that boat every day, single-handed, which gave me the real boost, and in helming on the trapeze and with a crew as well. I only really raced with a crew back then. And then eventually I got the job. I got the job teaching catamaran sailing for Wind Sport, as it's known now, Grafton Water in the UK. And then 2 years there, and then I got the job out here, Vasiliki Lefkas, Greece, where I have been ever since. There we go. Brief history of my sailing, what got me to where I am now. I'd like to say hello to Adolf from Portugal. Great to have you on board. But at this time, I'm going to wrap this up. I'd like to say thanks very much to everyone for tuning in. Thanks to everybody for watching later. Should be a new film coming on Sunday. Yes. Yeah, first one of the season, really. I know it's a bit late, but I've been recovering from surgery. New video out on Joyrider Worldwide tomorrow, in fact, and then another one on Joyrider Worldwide Sunday and then on Tuesday. So plenty of action to keep you going. If you haven't yet checked out Joyrider Worldwide, I'd like to think that YouTube will suggest a video from Joyrider Worldwide next after this is finished. All right, have a great weekend. If you're going sailing, get on the speed stick. Yes. Goodbye.